That looks like a coal fire to me. We'll see. Once all the wood's out. Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. 1 minute or less before I start the video, just to give you an idea what's going on here. This is a mini version of a coal stove. A coal stove is started with wood first. The coal is then shoveled in slowly until you get an initial bed. I show you everything but shoveling the coal because I can't do that and hold the camera at the same time. It was very successful. The idea was just to test this mini. And at the end of this video, I talk about what did we learn from this test? What would be the application of this coal stove if you wanted it in your backyard, your shed, your garage, your workshop, or your home? That's on the back end after the video, where I'll just pause and talk over one more picture. Okay, she's lit. No smoke. Just wood. Probably about a foot higher than what you can see there. We're going to add coal and see how this does as a coal stove. That's the only draft there, but obviously that's more than enough air. When the wood stack starts to drop down, I'll start adding coal. It's just blocking. I can't add it yet. It's got to get a lot hotter to add the coal. The reason that brick is there, in case I have to cut back the draft, it could be so much draft, I figured going straight up, I mean, it could start blowing embers way up into the air. I mean, who knows? If I have to cut back the draft, I'm going to leave it full for now. I want to get it as hot as possible. You can just shift this around to cut back the draft. I'm going to start adding more wood, little chunks of oak. Don't have any secondary air, you rocket stove tinkerers. See, when you get no smoke, you don't really need secondary air. That's kind of a giveaway. Secondary air is to eat up smoke. Is this really hot to touch? Yeah. Okay, about 10 really small scoops of coal. Be the equivalent of, if you had a real coal shovel, it would be equivalent about 4 or 5 scoops. Listen to the crackle of coal. I added 5 scoops of coal, and that's the crackle you want to hear. And a couple more pieces of oak chunks I added. I can't tell if the coal's lit yet. It should be, but we'll see. Now you don't want to keep the door open for coal. You want that door closed. You want that air coming from underneath up through the coal. Coal does not light from the top. It has to be underneath, and you get, your 2-inch bed lit, and then you keep adding to get up to your 6 to 8 inch bed. I'm not sure how long, coal will go 10 hours. I'm not sure how much coal I'm going to put in here. I don't want to mine this thing all day long, but I just wanted to try it, because the idea, if this works, and it's going to work, but the idea would be to extend, basically like your whole stove is one chimney, all the way up. These bricks would go triple as high as they are here, and then to close off a few sections to hold the heat. Basically, so the stove becomes one full 15-foot chimney out through the roof. And see if that should be a nice simple stove. Coal stove. It wouldn't really work for wood. You get too much draft, you blow through the wood too quickly. But for coal, it could be perfect, this simple setup. We'll see. Also, once we get the coal going, and this stove is a pretty nice backyard little setup to, for the boys to drink beer around. And once you get the blue flame dancers on top of the coal, and you could even open the door up, it'll be fine once it gets completely lit. And it will start radiating out heat. And it's also, you're not smoking your neighbors out. About 6 or 7 minutes later, let's see how we're doing here. pretty good. Still have a little bit of wood in there. Most of the flames probably from the coal at this point. Coal will put flames out initially, then they'll settle down to what they call the little blue dancers. You see some smoke coming out the bottom. It's just the door's too big. You get a balance of the air intake that it wants. Maybe, it just needs 1/4 of that, not even. I mean, maybe that brick is also helping swirl it around a bit. You would not want to leave it completely open at the bottom. It doesn't need to take in that much air, so that's pretty easy to fix. That looks like a coal fire to me. We'll see once all the wood's out. See, also the coal bed is building up, so the air wants to rush in hard, and it basically hits like a floor. It hits a floor. This coal's a little smaller than nut coal. It's nut coal, but it's a little small. If you were doing this in your backyard, you want to use big pieces of nut coal. The air zooms right through it. Here the air's rushing in. It's hitting like a floor or a bed, and to a degree it's being pushed out. There's ways to remedy this. Seven or 8 more minutes, we'll take a look at it now. It's been 7 or 8 more minutes. Yeah, this little, the smoke kind of seeping out the bottom, coal smoke, that is incredibly toxic. This is something that would have to be remedied if you ever put this in a house. That is not what you want. It's not like wood smoke. So we'll fix that later. For now, this is an outdoor backyard stove. That is hot. Ooh, that is hot. There's no flames from the wood anymore. That's coal. Ooh, okay. Since I'm stuck out here for an hour, what do you want to talk about? A coal fire first time. It's not something you really want to walk away from. Once I see how it's settling down, I can go in the house and come back every 5 minutes, just take a quick look at it. It's very wet here. We had a little rain, not much, but just to make the ground kind of muddy. So there's no risk like that. I could probably walk away from it, but I'm not going to. Coal, the heat of coal, it does scare me a little bit. I'm not, I've burned wood fires. I haven't burned too many coal fires. It's not my thing. So it's still the absolute enormous heat of it still freaks me out. 5 more minutes. Let's see how we're doing. Yep, that's good. That's real good. Okay, if this was a coal stove in the house, this is about the time where you would add, your 3, 4, 5 inches of coal on top of this to get your 24-hour burn, and you'd make sure your air is regulated properly. Too much air can overfire coal. It's very, very dangerous. Gets too hot, can melt iron stoves down or warp them. So let's take a look. Yeah. Let's see if I don't want to melt the camera. This is the time where you'd add your 4 or 5 inches of your bed. Okay, let's take some temperature readings. About 45 minutes in, you'll see how cool the bricks are. This is the door. It's really hot. 400 and some on the door. We'll go to the bricks. It's the sun glare, guys. I hope you can read that. I don't know what you can see with the camera. I'll read it off to you. 90, 104, 122, 95, 123, 117, 70, 80, 121. Go up top, 163, 190, 208 on the top of the bricks. And that little mini piece of cement there is 200. Now this, you never get a good reading on these round pipes. It's not 121. It's way, way hotter than that. I touched it and I almost burned myself. So this is normal though. This is only 112 on these bricks. Then you can touch them, no problem. It's only 45 minutes in. Wait for 2 hours in. It takes an hour or more for bricks in these types of stoves to heat up. Red brick would be the same thing. Fire brick and red brick kind of heat up and hold heat very similarly. Maybe you can see it around the back a little bit better. 120 something. Yeah, I'm only 45 minutes in, so this is normal. 2 hours is going to be the peak of it, and then it'll even get hotter because the coal is going to keep going for several hours after that. Okay, here's something we can talk about. If this was going to be a permanent stove in a cabin, say, well, you need a shaker grate to keep the coal. Some people keep their coal going for a month or two. They just keep it going. Yeah, every coal stove needs a shaker grate, no doubt about it. I was thinking the easiest way to do that would be instead of this, this Home Depot, what is it called? Landscape cloth. I never can get it right. It's just a blockage in my head. Gardener's cloth, something like that. Landscape cloth. Never can remember. I don't know. Just one of those things. You would put rebar. You drill holes in the fire brick, fire brick is soft. And you'd make a grate of rebar with the rebar sticking out. Each, maybe what would it be, about, I don't know, 8 pieces of rebar across. If you're using a bigger nut coal, with 4 inches or 5 inches of the rebar sticking out on each side. Kind of like a foosball table, you flip your little players on a foosball table, and then you'd shake the rebar back and forth through the holes that you drilled. And that probably would be pretty good as a shaker grate. It's called, you floss. You take, like, I don't know, it's like a coat hanger type device with a little hook on the end, and you rake, with your piece of metal between the grate, and you pull ash down that way, so you could floss the heck out of the bottom, and probably get away with being able to keep a stove like this going, for a month in a row. We're going to put our door in. This is just a test, so my mortar, I just have 6 or 8 scoops of dirt. I sifted some dirt, 2 scoops of sand, and 3 scoops of type S cement. The cement will just be enough to harden up that dirt for my test, but then when I go to break it down, it'll just come right apart. Of course, that's not what anybody should use if they're trying to do it permanently. So remember, in the last video, we put the door in here, and the door came up just too high. It was a 1/4 inch above. So I mortared these 2 layers of bricks with my mud and type S and sand mix. Again, I think that'll just come right apart easy, but just be enough to hold the door in for my test, or if I want to play with this for a few weeks. So I mortared 2. What you get your 1 brick opening by 3 bricks high, ready to go, and then again you mortar just enough. That's too thick for fire brick. Really is too thick. Fire brick, the joints with refractory mortar should be, it should be like nothing, 1/8 of an inch. It should be like bricks just laying on top of each other. I had to build them up a bit because I have to get this equal. I have to get the height pretty equal with the door, and I've gotten pretty close. So now I can continue to build my next level up, and I'll show you that when it's finished. Oh, just a quick note, if you don't have a lot of experience in laying bricks, you just need 2 levels, one like this, and you need a mini level, any sort of trowel. It's better to do 1 brick at a time if you're new. Just lay your brick, and actually, I didn't even use the big one much. I used it, you just go across, and then you check it both ways. And that's a little bit off, but again, this is for the test. You pound it down towards where the bubble is going, of course. So you just need a bigger level, to make sure your across is good. But just go 1 brick at a time. Butter your bricks, and again, tiny joints for fire bricks, and then just hammer it down hard with a rubber mallet. And it's better if you're new to go 1 brick at a time. Just take your time. Remember to put your initial bed down of mortar and then just lay the stove, lay the door right on top of your bed there. Okay, a sloppy job with dirt mortar, but it'll work. It'll hold for at least a week while I play around with this, and you just get something to prop it up or make sure it doesn't come off the stove. But there's little holes in this door. You could this fire brick is very soft. You could use one of those blue screws or whatever. Drill a few screws, into the fire brick to hold it that way. And you see, I just slapped. I'll show you from around the other side here. I just slapped a bunch of mortar by hand, and just filled in the sides like per the last video with my hands, and built the fire brick up with mortar just so it's on the same level. It's probably a good idea though, just in general, to go over the lip, if you don't mind something very ugly when you open the door, just because it'll hold it a little bit better. So that's it. I will finish the stove once this sets. It's not going to really set up. It's also in the 40s. The cement doesn't like that, so it'll be sticky enough just to hold together. Then I'll put another 40 or 50 bricks on the top and start doing our tests. Okay guys, the back end discussion, which will take about 10 minutes. What worked in this test, what didn't, what are the applications for this sort of stove for a shed, garage, outside, drinking beers with the buddies, inside a cabin, off-grid. We're going to talk about all that. Let's get the easy one out of the way first. The high flame door was excellent. Absolutely excellent. $40 on Amazon. Can't beat it. Great. Can't beat the price. It's easy. Absolute A grade to the high flame door. Second, the most important thing in having a discussion about this sort of stove is to re-emphasize, for everybody to realize, these bricks take a long time to get hot, right? They take at least an hour to warm up, and to get fully radiated with heat, an hour and a half, 2 hours. So this type of stove, fire brick only, red brick only, if you don't have iron plates on the top or cooktops, they don't work for sheds or garages. Somebody says, I'm going to go out and work in my shed for 2 hours and I'll light my stove. It'll just be heating up by the time you're leaving your work. So it does not work. These only work if you plan to light them up every day during, say, a cold snap, every day for 14 days in a row, every day for 20 days in a row, twice a day. If you're using wood, coal, this is the advantage of coal. We'll talk about how to use it for coal. You can fill it up high with coal, and you can get 8, 10, 12 hours before, and we'll talk about the shaker grate as well. So you got to be real patient. So I came an hour later, we saw 45 minutes, my temperatures were very, very low. But at an hour and a half, 2 hours, they get much, much higher. So please understand, this doesn't work in somebody's workshop. You're going to go out for a few hours. I think it works the best, and not in this mini format either, but in its full size. The idea was, okay, if this works, then we go up another 10 feet with this design. The best would be, I think, inside somebody's cabin, like off-grid. You see people on YouTube, they build these cabins, and they usually, just an A-frame or something. There's no insulation in the attic. It kind of goes up high because it's a point or an A-frame. If you put this thing in the middle of your cabin, and you ran it up another 8, 10 feet, and you just put a pipe up through the ceiling. You ran your pipe out as your chimney, your double wall insulated pipe. Again, then I think, even though each individual brick doesn't get that hot, some of the bricks down by the coal fire were 180 or so, 100, but most of the bricks as you go up, 70, 80, 90 degrees, not that hot. But the idea behind thermal mass is you get 500, 600 bricks all acting as a mini heater. Then the amount of radiant heat really is, impressive. If you burn it twice a day with wood to keep you don't ever let the bricks go cold, or I don't think this type of stove works like a masonry heater or a Russian stove, burning it twice a day with wood, because it's just the draft is so aggressive from the bottom, you just lose your wood inside of 25 minutes. But it might work. It seems to work for coal. So imagine if you had the cabin and we established the initial coal fire that we did in this experiment, but then you shoveled in additional 6, 8, 10 inches of coal on top. And if you regulate your air properly, we get that fixed at the bottom, that'd be 8, 10 hours of a very, very hot coal fire radiating up through all the bricks. I think, in a cabin, I think this would be, really, really nice and superior to like an old-fashioned iron coal stove. Because again, as soon as the coal goes out, the iron just gets cold. Where this, you have 500 bricks stacked up, 10, 12 feet in the air. It's going to take, even once the coal's out, and the coal's going to last for 8, 9 hours or so if you have the air regulated properly. Once the coal goes out, these bricks are going to radiate out inside the cabin for 4 or 5 hours at minimum, even when there's no fire whatsoever. That's the advantage of this. But only works if you're going to burn it every single day for your 3-week cold snap or whatever it may be. So let me pause this and collect my thoughts and make sure I don't miss anything before we wrap this up. Quick side note, this stove does not work for a backyard, let's drink beer around, the heat, or you just don't get enough heat outside. And when you open the door and you can see the coal, that's cool, but your coal will go out. The coal likes air up from the bottom through the whole bed. It doesn't like air across the top. It just doesn't work for anything outside. The bricks don't get that hot. So what would the fixes be? You saw the smoke was coming out the air door at the bottom. I'm just going to call it chicken wire. It's like chicken wire at a 1/2 inch. You buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's for gardening. 1/2 inch little squares. It's like chicken wire, but it's the holes aren't as big. And obviously that doesn't work for a permanent application. I think it'll be fine for a few tests. But the air was kind of blowing. See, my chicken wire grate was right above that box where the air goes in, right there at that level. And it should be, first off, you shouldn't let that much air in. You find a way with different cut bricks to make that air going in a lot smaller. But it should be, say, 2 bricks higher. That way, if there is any blowback or blow down, which probably only happened today because we were outside with wind. I don't think that would even happen inside somebody's cabin. But just to be safe, yeah, you're going to waste more bricks because everything's getting higher and your bottom bricks aren't going to heat up. It's just not worth taking a risk. I'd have the grate not directly over where that open square is. I'd have it 2 rows higher. So if there's any sort of puff back whatsoever, it just immediately reverses and goes back up. The flow of air is in and up. So that you just can't take any chances with any kind of coal gas coming into the house. So I'd raise it up. That means the door gets raised up. I probably would raise the door up even another 2 layers. When you drop your sticks down and your small pieces of wood, what's nice about this is, I don't know if you noticed during the test, no smoke came out when we opened the door. I mean, the draft is so aggressively upwards that you can just it's not like you want to leave the door open, but even with a lot of wood stoves, if your fire is going in a wood stove, everything in many wood stoves with a glass door is all pushed forward because of the baffle. You open the door, all the smoke pours out into your house. People think there's a problem with the wood stove. That's the way it's designed. Not supposed to open the door in a wood stove with a glass door with a baffle when the fire is raging. Here, it's no problem. So that's an advantage. I'd put the door much higher, like 3 levels higher, and I'd throw all the little sticks, and you'd almost like to throw the sticks down on the grate and start a coal fire with very small pieces of wood. You just kind of toss in, let it fall down, not place in. If you have a good grate at the bottom, your grate at the bottom would be like rebar or something like that, not this cheap stuff I got from Home Depot. But what that allows you to do then is, you want to be, this stove doesn't work unless you can get 6, 7, 8 inch big thick bed of coal, of anthracite nut coal. And if that the door should definitely be higher, and you just shovel it in and just have it fall down, and you get this thing cooking with your 8, whatever, 9. And at some point, the bed can be too thick, of course. The air can't get through it and it all goes out. I don't know what that right formula would be for this sort of stove. I mean, this was for this test. What did I have? Just 3 inches? I know it could take another 6 or 7 inches on top of what I did. So for this to work in somebody's cabin or something, and that the fire brick is very, it absorbs heat, but it's very insulating too. So you could get a 8 to 10 inch coal bed, in here with the dancing blue flames and everything, and that aggressive draft coming in from the bottom. I mean, this would be pretty darn nice in a cabin. Now, yeah, you're losing a ton of, because of the design is just straight up. There's no bell. There's no winding it up and down. You're losing a ton, of course, out the top. But I mean, I'm aware of that. But we're going for simplicity here, and something anybody can do in their cabin. Most people probably can't make some gigantic Russian stove, and so you need some insulated chimney to have everything get pulled up and down and up and down. And I mean that's better if you want to go to the Kuznetsov plan and put together some Russian stove. It pulls the gases up and down and around. But this is simple. Anybody can do it. You can do it in a day. I mean, and it just and I guess one of the big questions people might have is, and this is a big debate topic for a lot of people. Do you have to use fire brick all the way up? When boy, you hear a lot about this because the expansion rate of fire brick is different than of red brick. But somebody might be able to get a hold of 1,000 red bricks, and let's just take this conversation one step at a time. This is very important. Can you put the red brick right on top of the fire brick? That's the issue here. And the answer is not easy. So let me pause and think about this. Okay, starting with the basics, the disadvantage of fire brick all the way up, that's best, of course, is cost. Just over $2 a fire brick. People, there's some comments under some of my videos, like, that's not right. I think they're looking at the $7 or $8 soft fire bricks for kilns online. That's not. This is not a soft or reflecting fire brick for kilns. This is a regular fire brick from a brickyard. Any place that sells cinder blocks to construction sites is going to have fire brick, but Lowe's and Home Depot, I don't think they do. It's like $2.05 a brick. That's expensive. I hear you, but it's much better. The fire brick will hold and absorb heat very similar to a red brick. Everything's symmetrical. They have different expansion rates, though. I mean, they probably hold heat a little bit differently, but better if you can use fire brick all the way up, 10, 12 feet, of course. If you don't need the stove to be too hot, you go up an additional 2, 3, 4 feet, then you do your double wall stove pipe through the or you could just single stovepipe acts like a radiator. You could wind stovepipe around a bit, have it act as a radiator, then go out through your roof with your insulated double wall. But in terms of red brick on top, first off, you need fire brick for coal. The heat was tremendous. You see how black these bricks are? If I were to show you inside, completely cleaned all the bricks up to 18, 20 inches. Like every bit of soot got burnt off like brand new fire brick on the inside because the heat of the coal made these black bricks yellow again. So, but at this level, you need fire brick up to where we are here. It was so hot, that piece that holds the chimney, that square piece of cement that holds the chimney with the hole, that cracked through from this experiment. Cracked right through. So you'd need to go up at least this high. It's 20 rows. You'd need to go with fire brick. If you have a cabin with a point or an A-frame with a high ceiling, could you put 12 feet of red brick on top of this fire brick? And look, I've seen it done with the Russians have done it. Yes. Okay. Yes. The problem is you're not going to find fire brick the same size as red brick. They're going to be different. So you're going to, your red brick chimney going up will probably get smaller. And even you'd have to use pavers for it to stay symmetrical. Regular brick is not symmetrical, meaning regular red brick, 2 across is not the same as 1 on top. We're in a paver of 4x8. 2 across. 4 is the same as 8 exactly. So if you use regular red brick, you're going to have to make, your chimney gets a little bit thinner, which is fine. You can go a little bit thinner, but then it gets real, you can have a lot of cuts with a wet saw. I don't know how many. I don't deal in irregular sized red bricks, only pavers and things that basket weave. 2 over is the same as 1 up. But with different expansion rates, you will get cracking in your mortar to a degree, which is to some people is no big deal. You get some mortar cracking, and your joint should be super thin anyway. You just repair it, just whatever, dig out the crack, and it's not a big deal. A lot of the Russian stove makers say, it's going to crack. They all crack, and we just little fixes. It's not a big deal. You just get more of it if you have red brick on top of fire brick. And then again, lastly, if this thing goes up, if this thing is going up 10, 12 feet, if you're using just the fire brick with almost no joint, a 1/16 of an inch, just kind of like real thin buttered and hammered down on top, then it's questionable if you would need reinforcement. Because is the thing going to fall over? But if you use red brick, if you use 10 feet of red brick as a chimney on top of what you see here, 20 rows of fire brick, then you got to think of reinforcement. Something you never know. Meaning there's different ways to reinforce. I'm not an expert at it. The Russians use these flat metal ties at certain rows, and they'll kind of it's just like metal connectors and like sometimes things like coat hangers. It's a complicated topic, but they would absolutely reinforce with metal at certain if you're going to go much higher, especially with red brick on top of fire brick. The thing falls over at some point, you're kind of screwed. But for me, if it's fire brick all the way up to 15 feet, and the joints are like nothing, 1/16 of an inch. Where's it going to? These things are so heavy. Where's it going to? I don't know. I mean, to me, when they build these Russian stoves, it's almost like they use too much reinforcement. It's like, where's it going to go? What's going to, what's going to happen? But I don't know. They know more than me. But in terms of that's your problem when you get into red brick on top of fire brick. Make sure the damn stack doesn't fall over. Some sort of reinforcement, which is a whole different thing to investigate and beyond the scope of what we're trying to talk about here. Oh, one last thing. From a heat perspective, if your red brick is up, say, 2 to 3 feet higher than your flames are going to get up to, then I don't think it's an issue at all in terms of they can take the heat. Red brick is fired to 1,800 degrees with clay and shale. It's not a problem. Just red brick doesn't like real quick cool down and real quick heat up. I've had a few pavers crack where I was playing with my stove tests outside, kicked the thing up to 1,100 degrees, whatever, huge fires, and then it was 25 degrees outside. Let it go ice cold, and it doesn't like that. Red brick, pavers, shale, and clay doesn't like that. The brick itself, in some cases, will go 800 degrees on the inside, close to the flame, and then just an hour later, it's 20 degrees. It doesn't like that. Fire brick can go super hot, super cold, quick, without any sort of cracking. But in terms of the heat itself, the red brick doesn't mind it. Meaning if you had a stove that was all red brick or all clay or shale, I think it would be fine if you heated it up slowly. All the old Russian stoves going back 100, 150, 200 years were just red brick. They didn't have any fire brick. And some of the stoves lasted, 30, 40 years. They heated them up slowly initially. Then they're burned every day, twice a day, so they're never allowed to go cold. You're not doing to the red brick what it doesn't like. It's always sort of warm, and they're not overfired. And then I don't think red clay and shale brick has no problem with that. Doesn't like huge swings for whatever that's worth.